Alright guys, so I have an absolutely wild breaking story here for y'all because Arizona's Supreme Court just ruled that a near total abortion ban from 1864 is now enforceable. Okay, so we're going to read the details of this absolutely insane story. Then I'm going to show you a little bit more in terms of where we stand in any given state on abortion, as well as how this is going to impact the 2024 election. Because, you have Joe Biden, who just released a pretty brutal ad that I'm going to show you guys. You have Trump, who has come out and is sort of shifting his abortion stance to try to make it more appealing to a general election audience. And we just got a lot to get into here. So let's go ahead and read some of this. They say, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled on Tuesday that a 160-year-old near-total abortion ban, still on the books because I guess they just forgot to get rid of it, in the state is now enforceable. A bombshell decision that adds the state to the growing list of places where abortion care is effectively banned. Now, on specifically which states have the most restrictive abortion bans, this is a map that I thought, it's from the Gut Matcher Institute. I don't know, what institute this is, but they put together a pretty helpful map here to get a sense of which states have the most protective abortion laws and which states have the most restrictive abortion laws. And you can break it down and go read more in terms of the details in any of these states. In Arizona, they have it right now labeled as very restrictive, and this doesn't even include this 1864 law that's now going into place. But I just wanted to bring up this map because you have a lot of different swing states that are going to decide the 2024 election, not just for Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, but also you have Senate races that are going on. You have down ballot races that could be massively influential. And so, you look at states like Arizona and Nevada, and even maybe Texas, even though Trump is likely going to win there. Georgia, Florida is one that not only is going to have an abortion on the ballot, but is also going to have weed on the ballot in November. So this could, potentially be interesting. I still think it's pretty solidly in Trump's camp. But, North Carolina and Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, many of these different swing states are going to be massively influential in who wins the 2024 election, and abortion rights, since the overturning of Roe v. Wade by Trump's, Supreme Court nominees, that's going to be one of the main issues for 2024. And so just in terms of which states are potentially going to have it on the ballot, they got this good breakdown here from the AP, and you can go and read into the nuanced differences between the potential amendments that are being put forward here in any given state. But, again, you have Florida, you have Maryland, New York, and then they also say where it could be on the ballot: Arizona, like the state we're just talking about, Arkansas, Colorado, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, South Dakota. So I guess the most important ones here in terms of electorally would be Nevada, Arizona, potentially Colorado, and then Florida. So, this is also interesting as well to see how this is going to play out. But continuing with some of the details here, in terms of how absolutely ridiculous this law is, they say the ruling allows an 1864 law in Arizona to stand that made abortion a felony punishable by 2 to 5 years in prison for anyone who performs or helps a woman to obtain an abortion. So I don't know how far you could possibly stretch that. If somebody drives their girlfriend or their wife to go and get an abortion, does that mean you can now be, convicted of a felony and get 2 to 5 years in prison? You're threatening to put doctors in prison. I'm assuming you're also, potentially going to put the woman who gets the abortion in prison as well. Just a totally insane law. And they say that it was codified in 1901 and again in 1913. Even then, the last time it was codified was over 100 years ago, and it includes an exception to save the woman's life. Now, we've covered so many different stories in terms of how ridiculous this notion of exceptions for rape or incest or the health or the life of the mother is, because it's entirely arbitrary, and you're putting doctors in an impossible situation because they don't know exactly where the line is for, okay, is it an 80% chance that this woman is going to die if we don't give her an abortion? Is that acceptable? Or does it have to be a 90% chance? Or what if it's a 50% chance or a 20% chance that their health or their life is in jeopardy? It's an entirely arbitrary thing that is incredibly difficult to actually make decisions on when you have the threat of arrest for potential doctors or nurses or whatever the case may be, hanging over their heads. So the exceptions are bullshit. And the ad that I'm going to show you here that Joe Biden recently put out is giving a perfect example of why those exceptions are bullshit. But they continue here saying that the Civil War era law enacted half a century before Arizona even gained statehood. What are we talking about here, guys? We're talking about the Arizona Supreme Court that is now deciding to say that a law that was formed before the state even existed is now a potentially an enforceable law. That's the stretch that we're going with here in order to crack down on abortion. And it was never appealed by an appellate court, but they ruled last year that it could remain on the books as long as it was harmonized with 2022 law, leading to a substantial confusion in Arizona regarding exactly when, during a pregnancy, abortion was outlawed. And again, the goal is to be confusing. That's the goal. They say that the decision, which could shutter abortion clinics in the state, effectively undoes a lower court's ruling that stated that a more recent, from 2022, 15-week ban superseded this law. And the Arizona Supreme Court said that it would put its decision on hold for 14 days, so 2 weeks. We'll see how this ends up playing out, writing that it would send the case back to a lower court so that they could consider these additional constitutional challenges. And the only bright spot of this, I guess, is that the current Attorney General in Arizona is a Democrat, this woman, Chris Mays. And so she's come out and said, I'm not going to enforce this law. But I mean, you could have a Republican who becomes the next Attorney General of Arizona, and suddenly this law would become enforceable. This is what the Arizona Supreme Court is saying. And so now we get to this Joe Biden ad that just recently came out. I think it was yesterday or the day before. And this is one of the most brutal ads that I've seen the Biden campaign put out ever. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch this and we'll come out the other side.
So this is one of our willow boxes. This is just filled with some of the things that we had started gathering for her while I was pregnant.
Yep.
There's her little baby book. This is the outfit that she was gonna maybe wear home from the hospital. All of these. This is the blanket that she was in. And these are her little footprints.
It's okay. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Okay, so I mean, again, that's a fucking brutal ad. And there are potentially millions and millions of dollars that are now going behind this ad to play it in every single swing state, including in Arizona, right? So, I mean, it's hard to argue with the lessons that could be, gleaned from that kind of a story, right? I mean, it's a very simple thing that happened here. She, in a normal world, if we still had Roe v. Wade and all of that, she would be able to go and get an abortion because it was medically necessary. She had a miscarriage, and it wouldn't have been that much of a catastrophic situation. But because of the restrictions on abortion in her state that have been enabled since the Roe v. Wade standard was overturned, she was unable to get access to the care that she needed, which then led to her getting an infection, which, and this is the most ironic part about all of this because of the supposedly pro-life crowd, now she may not even be able to give birth again. This wasn't even an example of somebody who got pregnant accidentally and they didn't want the kid for financial reasons or because they weren't in the right place or whatever the case may be. This was somebody who wanted to have children. And because of some medical reason, she has a miscarriage, and then they have to do an abortion, but they can't do the abortion because of the right-wing laws against it that are on the books. And now she may never be able to have kids again because of what happened to her. So much for the pro-life crowd, right? Actively, not only almost costing her life, but now also preventing her from giving birth in the future. So incredibly fucked up situation, and that's a rock solid ad there. I mean, finishing it off, Trump did this? Yes, he did. He appointed the Supreme Court justices who ended up overturning Roe v. Wade, knowing exactly that's what they were going to do. And so, I mean, I guess it comes down to, how much is Joe Biden's endless support for a genocide going to weigh against, Donald Trump and Republicans' attack on abortion rights? These are probably going to be, unless something drastically changes between now and November, which it could, but these are probably going to be two of the main issues, right? And I have so many other issues with Joe Biden's campaign strategy, as well as his, first 4 years in office and all of the failures that we've talked about relentlessly. But these are going to be some of the main issues in the next election. And so you guys tell me, what do you think is going to be the bigger factor, right? And so we also had Donald Trump, who came out and again was sort of like, I think, trying to adjust his abortion position, because everybody associates him with the overturning of Roe v. Wade and blames him, I think rightfully so, for all of these state abortion crackdowns that we have been seeing, leading to stories like the one we just watched. And so he's trying to kind of play this somewhat middle ground while also taking credit for overturning Roe v. Wade. So let's just go ahead and watch a little bit of this video that he put out, trying to clarify, I guess, his stance on abortion and IVF and a bunch of other things.
The Republican Party will always support the creation of strong, thriving, and healthy American families. We want to make it easier for mothers.
Okay, I do just have to pause on that real quick. The Republican Party is in favor of creating like vibrant and strong American families, really the same Republican Party that is universally against things like the child tax credit and increasing funding for child care affordability. What are we talking about here? Of course, the Republican Party is not in favor of creating strong American families. They say that they are because they're pro-life or pro-life, right? Anti-abortion. But, we've seen Republicans crack down on things like IVF and birth control and even sex education, right? And we've seen them obviously, once the child is born, not give a single solitary shit in terms of actually materially supporting American families. But anyways, we'll let him continue here.
Healthy American families. We want to make it easier for mothers and families to have babies, not harder. That includes supporting the availability of fertility treatments like IVF in every state in America. Like the overwhelming majority of Americans, including the vast majority of Republicans, conservatives, Christians, and pro-life Americans, I strongly support the availability of IVF for couples who are trying to have a precious baby. What could be more beautiful or better than that? Today, I'm pleased that the Alabama legislature has acted very quickly and passed legislation that preserves the availability of IVF in Alabama. They really did a great and fast job. The Republican Party should always be...
Okay, and as a reminder, the only reason the Alabama legislature had to do that is because the Alabama Supreme Court ruled effectively that IVF could be outlawed in the state. Okay, so let's not forget that the right-wing, Republican Supreme Court in Alabama made that decision. That's the only reason that the state legislature, after massive public pushback, had to revert that change, but okay.
On the side of the miracle of life and the side of mothers, father, their beautiful babies, and that's what we are. IVF is an important part of that, and our great Republican Party will always be with you in your quest for the ultimate joy in life. Many people have asked me what my position is on abortion and abortion rights, especially since I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade. They wanted it ended. It must be remembered that the Democrats are the radical ones on this position because they support abortion up to and even beyond the 9th month. The concept of having an abortion in the later months and even execution after birth, and that's exactly what it is. The baby is born, the baby is executed after birth, is unacceptable, and almost everyone agrees with that.
Okay. So first off, what he's talking about there on IVF, it is interesting because it's somewhat of a break from other Republicans, right? Talk to Mike Johnson about what he thinks should be done in regards to abortion and a potential nationwide abortion ban, right? So it's ironic because Trump is coming out and saying, no, the Republican Party actually does stand, in favor of IVF and other baseline, somewhat popular policies, but the rest of your party doesn't agree with that. Like, you may be, licking your finger, putting it up in the wind and realizing, hey, if I come out against IVF or coming out in favor of a nationwide abortion ban, that's going to be deeply unpopular. But that's you. That's not your party. In fact, the only reason you're talking about IVF right now is because your party, the Republican Party, has been attacking the right to IVF, the right to abortion rights, right? So this didn't just come out of nowhere and you're battling some foreign enemy or something like that. This is your coalition that is doing this right now. It's because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade that you're having these massive crackdowns on abortion. So later on, he goes to praise the idea of having this be a state-by-state issue and that he's not necessarily in favor of a nationwide abortion ban. There is something that's deeply ironic about all of this in the sense that, or not ironic, I guess, but hypocritical, which is that you call yourselves the pro-life movement, You say that you believe that, from the moment of conception, that is a human being who should be granted fully fledged rights, that, they should be considered entirely as a person, right? At the moment of conception. How do you square that with having exceptions for rape, incest, or the life of the mother? How do you square that with having a 15-week abortion ban, right? Or a 6-week abortion ban? If you genuinely believed that from the moment of conception, that is a full-blown human being, then you should be in favor of a total nationwide abortion ban from the moment of conception. That would be the principled position from your perspective, right? How could you possibly justify saying, well, before 15 weeks, we're okay with what we view as murder, right? Or if there's a case of incest, or if there's a case of, sexual assault or rape, then it's okay to murder babies. I mean, you see how their position here is totally incoherent. It doesn't make sense. And I think the underlying reality of that is, again, they know how deeply, deeply unpopular their position is on this. They know that it's a massive political liability. And so that's why he has to come out and to, pretend as if Democrats are in favor of post-birth abortions, right? You have a totally normal, healthy baby, and then after they come out the wound, you're just like lopping their head off or something like that. This is not something that happens, okay? But they have to go to the most extreme, exaggerated, hypothetical situation of a post-9-month, post-birth abortion, and to portray Democrats as the radical on this issue, because they know how radical their position is relative to the overwhelming majority of the American people who, by the way, were in favor of keeping Roe v. Wade in place. So, I mean, it's insane at the same time as it's incoherent, at the same time as it's, a draconian crackdown, while they're not admitting that it's a draconian crackdown. But you can see that Trump, at least, is trying to sense the political winds and understands the jeopardy that his abortion position may actually put him in for his re-election chances. And this has been elaborated on by other Republicans. I mean, here we had, I'm not going to play this clip, but we had Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House Republican, who basically came out and said the quiet part out loud. And he essentially was saying, yeah, I know that Trump was sort of moderating his position there a little bit, but he's only saying that because he knows the election is coming up. And he's right here. Because if Mike Johnson and then a hypothetical Senate Republican leadership, if they win the House, they win the Senate, Donald Trump wins the presidency, is anybody really buying into the idea that Donald Trump would not sign off on a total nationwide abortion ban or a crackdown on IVF or birth control or whatever the case may be? Of course he would. Donald Trump doesn't have a principled position on abortion. I mean, we can look at, this article did a great job breaking this down. We can look at his previous positions on abortion. It's totally all over the place, guys. I mean, 1999 happens to be the year I was born, but 1999, I am very pro-choice, okay? Then in 2011, I'm pro-life. So what happened? You just completely flip-flopped there? Then in 2015, divided over the funding of Planned Parenthood, right? And this was when he came out and he basically said, like, yeah, Planned Parenthood helps millions and millions of women all across the country for multiple various reasons, including many that don't even have anything to do with abortion. But because I'm pro-life, I would still cut funding to Planned Parenthood, right? So again, incoherent. Then in February of 2016 says that he'll defund Planned Parenthood while also praising the group. In March of 2016, some form of punishment for women who seek abortions, right? And then 2016 in October, Trump vows to overturn Roe v. Wade. Then he nominates Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. The House passes a 20-week abortion ban with Trump's support. Trump advocates for a 20-week national abortion ban. Okay, then Trump nominee Brett Kavanaugh assures skeptics Roe v. Wade is settled. Okay, turns out he lied about that. So anyways, the point of me bringing this up is that he's all over the fucking place. He doesn't have a principled position on abortion rights. He'll do in the moment, if he wins the election, they have the House, they have the Senate, he'll do whatever he feels like his most rabid base, his rabid supporters, or the people who he staffs his administration with, who are going to be completely insane, whatever they want him to do. That's what he'll do in the moment. He doesn't have an ideological position on this. He doesn't have a principled position on this. He certainly doesn't have a religiously held position on abortion. Okay, how many abortions do we think that Trump has paid for throughout his entire life? I mean, I would be surprised if it's under 12, okay? And so, you have him trying to put his finger in the wind, adjust his position slightly, and I think that's because, again, you have ads like this coming out, you have Democrats all over the country railing him and other Republicans over the head with it over and over and over again, and then you have states like Arizona where fucking 1864 Civil War era laws are being, put into play now, as a part of this massive abortion crackdown. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is this going to be the deciding factor in 2024, not just between Biden and Trump, but also for some of the, Senate elections, House elections, lower down ballot things? I think in many of these swing states, especially if they have it on the ballot, that this is going to be a massive, massive issue for Republicans. Now, again, you have to weigh that with some of the flaws of many Democrats. Now, I think Democrats are going to, if I had to predict right now, significantly outperform Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a drag on the Democratic Party right now. So I think more down ballot Democrats are probably going to do better. I think abortion is going to be a major reason for that. And, it just comes down to, again, how do you weigh abortion rights with, the genocide that Joe Biden is supporting and endorsing in Gaza? And how do you weigh that with the current state of the economy? There's a lot of different factors, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments.
Saying good politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying